Hey, I'm Alyson Stoner, and you're listening to The Art of Kindness.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to The Art of Kindness, where we have compassionate conversations with artists from all areas of the entertainment industry who are using their voice to spread joy and make this big spinning planet in the universe a better place to be. I'm Robert Peterpaul, and I'm so glad you're here. Hello, friends. Thank you for joining us for Season 5 of the Art of Kindness podcast. This season is going to be fun, it's going to be fresh, and hopefully inspire us all to go out in the world and activate kindness, something I think we need now more than ever. So grab a mug and let's brew up a cup of kindness tea and enjoy some time together. Pull up a chair. Or, if you're walking or on a run, we'll walk right beside you. We're your buddy. If you're in a car, we'll sit in the passenger seat too. I mean, the options are unlimited. Okay, I gotta rein it in already. Season 5. Woo-wee! I did some Googling, and apparently the number 5 often symbolizes balance, humanity, and connection. Which kind of makes sense when you think about it, because there are 5 fingers on each hand and 5 senses, although this time of year there might be a 6th sense. So in a way, this reminded me that kindness isn't just one action. It's a balance of multiple things like awareness, empathy, and connection. A recent connection I had the honor of making was with someone I knew from my childhood. And by I knew them from my childhood, I mean I watched them on my TV. It was a complete privilege to connect with the one and only Alyson Stoner. Alyson Stoner is a multi-disciplinary entertainer, author, and founder and CEO of Movement Genius, a mental health company providing therapist-led content to improve well-being. They also host the award-winning Dear Hollywood podcast, where they advocate for reform that protects children in traditional and digital media. With multiple certifications under their belt, they've led and contributed to programming for the United Nations, the World Health Organization, LGBTQIA+ centers, and leading universities. As a child actor, Alyson appeared in over 200 films, TV shows, and tours, including Camp Rock, Step Up, Cheaper by the Dozen, and iconic music videos with stars like Missy Elliott. Let's also not forget Mike's Super Short Show. They also lend their vocal talents to series like Phineas and Ferb. Oh, and the audiobook for their new memoir. Yes, Alyson has scribed a powerful book entitled Semi-Well-Adjusted Despite Literally Everything, which is also how I describe myself. This book is the launching pad for our conversation today, candidly outlining their tumultuous childhood in Hollywood and how they've gotten to the place they are today. Alyson was kind enough to give a copy of their book away to one lucky listener, as you may have seen if you follow us on Instagram. I guess I'll end the suspense and announce who the winner is now. Drum roll, please. The winner of a copy of Semi-Well-Adjusted is Alyssa Nicole Carmody. Woo! Congratulations, Alyssa, aka @HarmonyCarmony. I can't think of a more harmonious winner. Stay tuned for more giveaways amongst our kindness community this season. Alyson is building kind communities of their own, much like my friends at Kindness is Free. Kindness is Free is a nonprofit initiative based out of the Boys and Girls Clubs of the West San Gabriel Valley and East Side. Much like the conversations we have here, they are committed to building a culture of compassion, inclusion, and emotional safety empowering youth and adults to lead with kindness in every part of their lives. I've gotten to know the team there a little bit and truly admire how they channel the power of kindness to create change, which starts with one person and then trickles into communities. Who can you start with today, friend? Kindness is Free has generously sponsored our online recording studio, Riverside, allowing us to keep bringing you kind conversations for free. Visit kindnessisfree.org to learn more. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend and leave 5 stars wherever you listen. It would mean the world. Now get ready as we unpack what true kindness is, how we can reclaim our authentic selves, and so much more. There may even be a cameo from another Disney star. And my grandma? What? I don't know. I mean, this is a special one. Without further ado, let's chat with the authentic Alyson Stoner. Alyson Stoner, thank you so much for being on The Art of Kindness today.
Thank you for having me.
I have to say, I have been looking forward to this for what feels like forever.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the words. I'm like a little kid on Christmas morning just to thank you for this book, let alone trying to figure out the questions we're going to ask you. That's going to be wild in itself. But I just want to say that semi-well-adjusted, it wasn't just words on a page for me. It was like I opened up the book and it created a safe space for me to reflect on my childhood and for me to think about things I hadn't thought about in so long as a child actor in the theater space. And so I just related to so much of it. I don't know if you're surprised by how much people relate to it, both in the industry and out of it, but I immediately just connected to your story so much. And it was digestible and brilliant. I mean, watching and doing research on you is like a masterclass because you are so articulate. You are just like so able to take this big, beautiful brain and make it digestible for all of us. And so I'm such an admirer of what you're doing all around.
Thank you.
And
that
I
is
could go
so
on,
kind.
but I just wanted to start with that. Thank you for being you. I should have just said. There we
And
go.
thank you for sharing, because I've spoken to a few folks who were kid performers or young athletes or students who were under high demand performance schedules. And there are some similarities, even though the backdrop might be different. Whether you're in the industry or not, growing up is a complicated experience, and there are so many layers. So I did intentionally write it in a way where, regardless of the canvas that you're working with, you can still find yourself. And in fact, actually, the metaphor I've been using lately is that I either want it to be a window into an experience you haven't had firsthand, or a mirror where you can learn something about yourself. And so I think readers and listeners tend to toggle between those, oh, this moment is a window, this moment is a mirror. And it's been so powerful to see the response. I worked on it for so many years that you hope it will receive a response like this, but the fact that it actually is coming to fruition and that it's bigger than me, this is not just a celebration of the author. It's how can I apply this to my life? How can this change how I move through the world? That is, the highest compliment as a writer.
Yeah. It really is such a handbook. And I love the window metaphor, not widow. Let's not manifest that, because when you're looking out a window, you see so many beautiful things. But if you look really closely, you can also see yourself. So that sort of reflection aspect that you bring forth is a great tone to set. And as I mentioned, Alyson, the book, it made me feel seen. It's also just like wildly entertaining, which is really hard to achieve, I feel like, with a memoir. So I want to make sure people know that as well. But I wonder right off the bat, what's the first book or piece of media that made you really feel seen?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to go very left field here.
Let's do it.
Which is that I gravitate toward nonfiction. I tend to prefer things that dig into reality as opposed to providing an escape. So while I totally commend people who know how to write fantasy and enjoy narrative, I am all for anything that has to do with breaking down systems and structures. And I
Mm-hmm.
actually feel seen because if I'm watching a documentary, let's say by Adam Curtis called Hypernormalization, or there's a series called Century of the Self, and I'm learning about all of these different cultural myths and trends and political systems and all of these variables that are shaping my everyday experience and perception of reality. Well, now I finally have language for what I've been feeling implicitly, but didn't really know how to describe. And so I would say actually the docuseries, The Century of the Self, was really illuminating for me recently. It helped me understand how we've seen this trend toward a more individualistic lifestyle, how that shows up in, how we consume, how we think about everyone needing their own personal brand online, how we even think about spirituality and faith in these bigger existential questions. And my heart has been craving community, craving something more communal. And yet what I'm seeing currently reflected is a hyper focus on the self. But that didn't just happen organically. There have been levers that have been pulled. And so that docuseries really was eye-opening and thought-provoking and ultimately inspiring, because I was able to see, it hasn't always been this way, which means it doesn't always have to be this way.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I'm going to check that out. Everybody check that out. It makes me wonder too, there's something to be said for celebrating the individual, of course, because specificity in a way is universal. Your specific story is universal because you were so vulnerable and specific. And I hope that we can all come together as individuals within a community at the same time. And I think kindness might be the bridge in a lot of ways. So I'm excited to break that down. Kind of a silly question I always have just started out with is, how are you at accepting compliments? And having read your book, I think it might be an interesting answer. How are you at sort of receiving that love and praise today?
Oh boy. Well, my body just gave me the signal of discomfort.
I saw it. Yeah.
Wiggled a bit. And, I think in some ways I'm learning to receive care and maybe a compliment of a sort. But I think historically, because a lot of my career and life path have involved being more of a persona of myself, sometimes it felt hard to know, is this compliment truly for me, the authentic human, or is it for this identity that's been somewhat manufactured in public? And so I think the deeper my bonds are in everyday life, in the mundane moments where there are no cameras involved and no one is trying to, promote any projects, in those moments, if someone offers a compliment, I think that's what sticks and what I'm learning to receive. And, I think over time, maybe there was a quote once upon a time, I think an author, C.S. Lewis, said, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. Now, granted, my worldview has evolved quite a bit since the time that I was reading C.S. Lewis, but there's a gem in there that remains, which is I used to think compliments and receiving them meant I was automatically puffing up in superiority. And now I've learned, actually, I don't need to feel inferior as a means to pretend that I'm humble. Actually, if I allow that compliment to flow to me and then through me and then pass that compliment on to the next person and not think about it too much or too little and kind of just move forward with life, then there's actually something lovely about that. And if I want to offer kindness and compliments to other people but never receive them myself, well, that's, that doesn't quite line up. So I'm learning.
I love that. It's a work in progress for everybody. Every person that I've asked that to has said not the same answer, but that it's a work in progress. And simple gratitude, I think, helps people to receive that, because it is about the other person as well, right? But then that brings in that tricky performance aspect of, well, if I'm thinking too much about how the other person feels, I'm not really being present in X, Y, and Z. And, I thank you for sharing that. And, another thing I would love to just set context for today is your definition of kindness, Alyson. From growing up in the Midwest, which kind of has a reputation for being sort of kind or nice. There's a lot wrapped up in there. What does kindness mean to you? And how do you think your definition has evolved over the years?
It certainly has been an evolution. I would say previously I used to use kindness and niceness and politeness interchangeably. And the image I see has a bit of a sheen to it. It was something that was delivered with a smile and a restful body, whatever
Not the
restedness.
clothing brand Sheen.
Oh, right. No, not that. Sheen.
I got
in
you.
this case. And while that may be one way that it's delivered, I think now kindness feels more like an active choice to see someone's dignity and to respond to them in a way that speaks to their wholeness of who they are. I see kindness as less about just being agreeable and friendly on the surface and more about being attuned to the person and the situation in front of me. And then I think zooming out, I wonder what kindness looks like, not just as an individual trait, but as more of a collective ethic, because I think kindness without systemic change is kind of like offering comfort without justice, or lip service without actual liberation. And if we're not careful, I could see how kindness could be co-opted as a distraction. Someone could say, oh, just be kind, everything will be solved, while leaving some of these other challenges unchecked. So I think kindness, in order to be transformative rather than just cosmetic, must extend beyond that momentary gesture into our structures and systems as well. So it's a both and, not either or, but both and.
That's really beautiful. You have to talk the talk and walk the walk, but you can't really walk the walk if the gravel you're walking on is turning into hot lava, or if there's a lot of potholes, So it's like we have to really pave the road as well for us all to walk down it together. And I work with a wonderful organization that you might enjoy, because I know you're sort of like a science geek as well, called kindness.org. And they're the only nonprofit that studies kindness from a scientific point of view. And a lot of the things we're going to talk about today are actually rooted in science. And so I'm glad we can kind of demystify that it's all puppies and rainbows, which it is too. But kindness is also authenticity, which is beaming through your memoir. I mean, the authenticity, although I'm holding it upside down, everybody, you can't see that, but I am. It's so authentic and moving. And I was almost tempted to give you this hour or so of your life back, just because you have been running on this press circuit and this interview circuit. And you've been so generous, not only with what you wrote, but in now how you're talking about it with people. And people are loving you. They're responding so well, and you're giving more. And I just thought, what sparked your desire to come on here and talk about kindness with this little Muppet today? Like, why is kindness important to you?
Well, first, thank you for that thought, because I do know that we're holding multiple truths at once. It's an honor to be able to have a conversation with you in a welcoming space. And the context of this is that I've now made over 300 videos. I've done over 75 podcast interviews. I've done, dozens and dozens of live appearances. I have things booked until next August. It's the longest trail I've ever experienced, which is ironic. If you read the book, you'll see that I'm on my way eventually to an ordinary, simple life, but this is quite a big finale of a sort. So I appreciate you naming. There is an exchange happening, and it does take energy and and coordination to make all of this come to fruition. And I think it's also it's a gift. Can you remind me your question? I wanted to thank you for that first.
Oh, well, thank you. My question, I was just very curious about why, amidst this time of you just running around,
Oh,
why was
yes.
kindness important for you to speak about in relation to this book? Having read it, I could make a few guesses, but I would love your
I
response.
First and foremost, I appreciated that your podcast has a specific theme, and it
Mm,
was going to allow an opportunity to talk about things not only in my past, as many conversations focus on for the book, but also what's happening in the present and what we're dreaming about in the future together. It felt far more like a mutual exchange and not
mm,
just a recounting of. And that is, it feels more kinetic, it feels more interesting, spontaneous. And given, the state of everything happening in the world, I do
mhm.
see kindness, even in my own life, as having become a bit of an afterthought, something that I haven't centered in my interactions in the way I once did when I was a little more rested and had fewer responsibilities, and I didn't have a device in front of me showing me so many different things all day
Mhm,
long. So
mm,
it feels critical and also soft in
uh,
a way that's essential, I think, for us. In a busy world when, our
mm.
bodies tend to be tense, kindness can help soften some of
I
that
know.
edge.
Shaking it out right now. I'm thinking of the wonderful workshops and drills you offer on Movement Genius, which I learned one the other day that I'd never done before or heard of. It was called tongue in cheek, which
Oh,
maybe that's
yes.
the way I speak, Alyson, but literally putting your tongue to your cheek can be transformative for the jaw if you hold your tension there. And so that's what came to mind there. And also, you mentioned having everything shown on your phone. I mean, even the videos you're putting out there, what we put out there about kindness, and then, of course, the other side, violence, all this stuff. I've never thought about the desanitization. I don't know if that's the word, but desensitizing people on both sides. We think about violence, but I think people are becoming desensitized to seeing the army vet show up on the doorstep and surprise their family, or the puppy
Mm,
under the tree, whatever it is. And then in our own lives, life, I find myself sometimes it's like that performative thing of how do I react versus just experiencing these things for the first time. So it's interesting just hearing you say
yeah.
that.
That sparked something around just tech design, and I'll share briefly. I spoke at a conference recently on digital policy, and
Mm,
I think they expected me to speak about protecting children because that is one thing that I do as an advocate. And as a somatic practitioner who focuses on body centered tools, I actually felt more compelled to talk about our tech design and the way that if we're not designing it alongside human neurobiology, that it will
mm,
ultimately, it can cause maybe even unintentional harm. And so, of course, there may be intentional harm there as well to
mm,
contend with. But when we think about these tech platforms and even those moments of family reunions or the cute little baby or the adorable puppy being reunited with
mhm,
with their family, um, it still in some ways is hijacking our ancient biological systems, and it
mm.
almost microwaves these moments where we're then kind of leaning on them for hits of dopamine as opposed to really
Yeah.
settling into the experience and staying with that one moment. I mean,
Mm,
I know my own scrolling tendencies. I'm getting that, hit of dopamine from the family reuniting, and then 0.6 seconds later, I'm on to the next hit, as opposed to
mm.
watching the full 3-minute video and to
Yeah.
really reflect on what that moment must have felt like and what's the information I'm seeing versus that I'm missing, and how does that relate to my own relationships in life. So I think in some ways, I love what you're surfacing because there's something to be said about trying to compress all of the human emotions into micro moments when
Mm,
we need space and time to process and digest
yes.
and, live into how we're affected by these small gestures of kindness and these deeper gestures of kindness of, policy change and, systemic improvements.
Yeah, it's so brilliant. And I think we could go down that rabbit hole as well. But I wish there was a way to shake up everybody's algorithm so that they could sort of see things from the opposing side or their
Mm,
opposing personality, because everything's so custom to that you're kind of just, whether it's a viral video or something political, you're preaching to your own choir and you're only seeing your own narrative. And I don't know, there might be some kind of answer there if we were to digitally shake things up. But I do
right.
want to talk about non-digital things like your book. And one of the quotes I loved, not to read you to you, but you said, I think on this press tour, the truth is not always polite, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth telling. And I found that to be so wrapped up in kindness for me, because being nice, I think, is polite. I don't think kindness is necessarily being polite. I mean, it can be, it's complex, but you wrote with such intentionality. And what struck me initially was that you didn't paint anybody as the villain or make them a cardboard cutout, which I think can happen in memoirs. So that feels like a profound act of kindness to me, like the way you wrote. Could you share your approach to storytelling in that way of just being able to kind of step outside yourself and paint your truth and then maybe realize, oh, that could come across a certain way to people. So I will also say they were going through this and da 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 da. Like, how did you go about that?
Sure. It was a very methodical and arduous process, not
Hmm.
because it's hard to humanize someone, but because I have to anticipate every possible interpretation from every reader and listener and try to get ahead of some of the judgments that I do not want them to form of others, sure, of myself. But really, when I'm talking about people who are alive and who deserve dignity, even if I've had a complicated experience with them in my own world, um, I I wanted to pull from a lot of techniques I had used and learned over the years. One of them came from acting, which was, early acting coaches said, "Hey, Alyson, you cannot judge the character you're trying to play, even if you would never
Hmm.
choose what they're choosing. Because if you do, we're going to see Alyson. We're not going to see who they truly are." So I learned a bit about getting myself out of the way and my preconceived notions and opinions and leaving
Hmm.
room to try to understand that individual's, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors triangle. And then another thing that I learned from, not only a therapist growing up, but also just,
Less, yes.
yeah, different people in my life is to seek first to understand someone before expecting them to understand you.
Hmm.
And actually, I think that was from a Stephen Covey book, The Habits of Highly Effective Teens or something like that.
I
Um,
love the credit there. My nanny always says that too. My grandma, who I always quote on here. I love that.
yeah. So I think I wanted to try to allow everyone to be a rounded person, and I just
Hmm.
know what it's like to have article after article speaking about you spun in a way where you only get to be framed as one dimensional. And so I wanted to extend
Hmm.
the kind of care and humanization, which, to be clear, doesn't always mean discussing only positive things. It is a
Hmm.
rounded perception, but then to simultaneously own that this is still just my experience and that this person in another person's life might be a hero, and
Hmm.
I in someone else's life might absolutely be the villain. So, leaving room for that interplay of perception and and how multidimensional we are. I mean, gosh, I
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons I wanted to name the book Semi Well Adjusted, because I thought if I go with the title that sounds like I've figured it all out, I'm
Hmm.
gonna set myself up for feeling like I've got to live up to an image that's completely inaccurate. So I went, okay, let me just cut through right to, straight to the
Yeah.
chase.
I love the title so much. I was going to ask you about the title, but that's a great answer right there. And I think, what if we're adjusted? What does adjusted mean? It probably means I'm sorry, you're dead in a coffin, because getting adjusted is maybe the purpose of life. It's a journey. And what
really interests me, I don't know why this just popped up, but what you just described is a pressure, right? It's a pressure to have to meticulously think about how you're describing each person in your book, and how maybe some people read memoirs for the tea. And then this was the first time I felt like someone's memoir was just so respectful. And it's interesting how pressure lands. I would love to hear this, you connect with this, how pressure lands when we're being authentic to ourselves versus the pressure you had early on in your story when you weren't being authentic, and it sort of like made you get off the rails a little bit. Do you feel like
Yeah.
now it's easier to handle pressure because you're coming back to your core a little bit?
So when you say that, what comes up for me, it is something I've been experiencing in the last few months. I'm realizing in my own life path, I have either rejected my authentic self in order to be accepted,
Mm,
or I'm now beginning to accept myself, even if it means being rejected. And in parallel with that, I've noticed I once used to internalize whatever conflict or challenge was happening externally. And by absorbing it and trying to either, be a peacekeeper and I'll take on the pressure so that you can have an easier time, whatever that thing was, I was then absorbing that stress on my mind and body, and I didn't know that I was storing it. And I didn't know that I'd wake
mm,
up with aches and pains someday from it. And I didn't know how to process and release it. Whereas now I'm starting to recognize that, if we go with the premise that the truth isn't always polite, but it is worth telling, then I may need to say something that causes some of this pressure to be redistributed. And
mm,
while I don't wish for this kind of pressure to be on anyone, I would love for us all to just feel restful all the time.
mhm,
If there are serious matters or difficult conversations that need to be had, and it involves more than one party, then we're going to have to look at a fair or a different distribution of this pressure, of this
mhm,
tension. And my hope is that, with as many situations as possible, I can have some kind of mutual space where we're coming together knowing, okay, we're about to deal with something that is high pressure and it is difficult, but I would like to meet you halfway. Will you meet me halfway? And let's see if we can transmute this into something different. Um,
mm,
and then there will be other situations where I do have to accept that I'm choosing to allow, let's say, a part of the system to feel the pressure, that there needs to be more accountability for something. Or
mm,
in this particular relationship, hey, I've actually been carrying all the weight. So now I'm going to need to see, are you able to carry some of that weight with me? And if not, something's going to have to change here. So
mm,
I think it's been a learning curve as someone who would much prefer to just solve the problem by taking on the issue myself and
yes,
internalizing it.
I relate. Yep.
Yeah, I think many people do. I think it's, it's a deep strategy that many of us have,
Mm,
and it may only be useful in certain contexts and up to a point. So I'm
mm,
now learning to practice how to also manage the discomfort of, I think there's an aspect when you let someone else or something else take on some of the pressure that you've been holding alone,
mm,
you also lose control of what happens. Whereas before, if I internalize everything, well, then even though I might be a sinking ship here, at least I'm in control. I know what's happening to me. But
mhm,
if I give
mhm,
you the chance to hold it with me, I don't know how you're going to react. I don't know what's going to happen. And all of my alarm signals, go off in my own mind and body. So I think
mm,
there's a sensitivity to this, and it requires, hopefully, if you're dealing with interpersonal or systemic challenges, the hope is that you can feel like all parties are dancing with each other to figure it out,
mm.
as opposed to wrestling against each other
Yeah.
to figure it out. And that analogy comes from one of my trainings as a mental health coordinator. So I don't know the name, but it wasn't mine, borrowed.
No, I love that. I love how that's a kindness right there, giving credit to others. Actually, I don't even know who to give credit to. Someone said that on my podcast once.
Nice.
I Yeah, I think it's so interesting because we're so afraid of being rejected, but we reject ourselves. So there's still a
Mm,
rejection happening. And if we do go out and show our true selves, you're able to take the pressure off, like you said, and share it with someone. And the joke is that most people that we're authentically connected to in this life want to carry the burden with us. Like, I want to help somebody. It makes you feel good. There's science behind that too, why it actually is good for you. And so
right.
it's just fascinating that we don't do it over and over again. But another thing that we have in common is that early on in the book, you talk about making up songs and self-soothing with these sort of songs about gum under the table or Disney songs, whatever pops into your head. I wonder, and I might be wrong here, but when the safe space of being creative in that way, which used to soothe you, becomes unsafe, how do you kind of rebuild that? I mean, is that still now how you soothe yourself? I was curious.
That is a loaded baked potato of a question, as I call it.
There's cheese on it. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of and bacon bits and everything that I'm allergic to, and
Oh no.
So no. So I think
It's
what
gluten
kind?
free. Okay.
Right, sure. And it'll have to be dairy free too for my allergies, but we'll figure it out.
It's on the FODMAP list. I promise.
Oh
No.
my gosh, relatable. So I think. Sorry, remind me again. I'm losing my train of
Well,
thought.
no, I'm just curious about, I tend to do that to people. I'm like, this is a crazy kind of strain. I was just curious about like how you self soothe now. Cause I feel like singing to yourself and the Disney songs or whatever, it's sort of wrapped
Yeah.
up in what you were doing.
Yes. So this is, a vulnerable process that is very much unfolding in real time. Now, I still have this craving whenever I think of a new melody or write a new song to immediately record it and release it for the world.
Mm,
Simultaneously, though, my body, anytime I think about performing, I feel a deep sense of panic. Now, that's from a lot of different things, and I wish got over stage fright at some point.
mm,
Certainly did not in my case, but also I think there's something that my body is trying to do, which is protect me from giving absolutely everything away that once was so sacred and private, a space where I could just freely explore how I was feeling and not have to have it be a polished performance. So
mm,
I've found as I stepped away from the industry, dance and movement, that became an opportunity for me to discover how my own body actually wants to speak through movement. I had only known choreography, someone else's moves. I had only thought about being in a studio where there's a mirror
mm,
giving you immediate feedback
mhm,
as to how you look. And so I always admired freestylers and breakers and different kinds of dancers who trusted their body and kind of fell in step with the music as if they were intertwined. And I said, okay, what would it take for me to access that kind of freedom? And for me, I learned that I would have to remove all the cameras, which is sort of ironic when you're like, wait, but what if the coolest things come out? Those are the ones I wish people
mhm,
could see.
mhm,
But for now, I'm learning the beauty of moving and creating for its own. It serves its own purpose. It
mm,
doesn't need an additional kind of delivery vehicle or, documentation, evidence of to make it valuable. I mean, we have these gifts of creating even how we design the schedule of our day. Even if you don't identify as an artist by trade,
mhm,
we are creating our lives with the choices we make and our body language and how we show up in relationship, all these different
mm,
things. And so I try to now see the beauty of that for what it is and to not have any additional expectations of it serving more purposes. I mean, just the
mm,
art of living, the creativity of living, that is period. It's
mm,
enough. It
mm,
is the experience. So maybe that's a quicker way to summarize it. I'm now focused on the experience and the process far more than the outcome.
That's the next book title right there, The Creativity of Living. Okay. No, I love that. That's actually very helpful to me. And I'm going to replay that and listen to it on a loop because I need to learn a similar lesson or go through that. Alyson, I wonder, and obviously share only what you're comfortable, but you mentioned it was such a tiny thing in the book, but you mentioned that your mom learned how she wanted to be cherished by a partner. And I'd love to know, just having your story out there now, you being the wonder that you are, how do you want to be cherished by people on this earth?
Oh my
I know it's kind of a
goodness.
big question, but
What a tender question. I can feel
like
the
chicken.
water behind my eyes
Oh.
forming. I don't know that I've given much time to um I after this I want to sit with that because I don't know really, but something that comes up in a way that I feel deeply loved and seen and understood these days is when someone affirms my sense of agency, affirms that I have a choice in what we do. Just my life trajectory, if you read or listen to the book, you see how everyone else owned my name, image, and likeness, and uh, I'm now, even if someone tries to offer help, it's funny. I kind of know how well someone knows me based on
Mm,
if they offer me help, um, or if they give me the choice to let them know when I need help. If you offer me help, that lets me know we're not super close yet,
mhm,
because what I actually prefer is to be able to say, okay, I've reached my limits, and now of my own agency, I am going to ask you for help. And then you can say yes
mhm,
or no. So when someone knows me that well, and doesn't assume that, oh, we're going to make your life easier by doing this for you. No, 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 no. That
mhm,
doesn't feel helpful to someone who's actually wanting to learn how to do that thing. Even though
mm.
I might be struggling through something, I might actually want that skill.
Yeah.
So let me, of my own volition, ask for help.
Mhm,
And then there are a few people who are so on the inside that they know, all right, Alyson, we could see that you're flailing. I'm just hopping in. Let me give you an extra hand here.
mm,
But yeah, I think that feels so loving, and affirming to me, uh, and that people know yes, I'm on my way as a typically very independent person. I'm on my way to learning how to lean on others and learning how to be in community. But I'm sorry, I'm not fully there yet. So if you expect me to just like get super integrated super quickly, that's probably going to scare me a
mm,
bit. So I just got to tiptoe. And if people are willing to be patient with me in that way, I think that feels relieving, and like I can be my true self, and I don't just have to like
mm,
put on the show of, oh, thank you so much, yes, 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 yeah, oh, that's so kind, thank you,
mhm.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
um does that
I get that so much. No,
relate?
my shoulders
Okay.
like went up at one point I noticed, probably because I've been going through your wonderful movement genius workshops and
Mm,
I was aware of that and I put them down. I think because I again can relate to that and just hearing you say tiptoe is very honestly comforting. Like it is
mm.
a tiptoe. It's not a sprint. You're going to fall through the floors if you sprint. And I just think that I don't even really have the answer to that question. So I apologize for asking you
Well,
because I don't think many of us think about that. We think about maybe self care and the buzzwords, but how to like sitting with how we actually want to be cherished is truer to kindness, maybe. So
yeah,
appreciate you sharing that.
and really quickly, I had a conversation with Blair Imani and Michael.
Oh,
I don't know Michael's last name.
Michael Threets.
Okay,
Yes, we
yes.
collaborated with them at kindness.org. So lovely.
Oh,
Such lovely
great.
folks. Yeah.
Yes. And Michael brought up a great point around, I'm paraphrasing and using it over here, so definitely go listen to Michael directly for the quote. But he was explaining the difference between someone saying, I need you here and I want you here, and
Mm,
how sometimes maybe out of desperation or out of uh, even good intentions, we think that telling someone, we need you, please stay, is going to be the best way to incentivize someone to stick around. Um, And what came up for me when he shared that was I realized, oh, actually, if someone came up to me and said, I want you to be here, I think that might speak to that aspect of feeling
Mm.
cherished more than, someone saying, kind of like, it's, if you're anything like me and you're used to taking on lots of responsibilities, when someone says,
Mhm.
I need something from you, you're like, okay, let me add that to my to-do list. But if
Yeah.
someone says, I want you to be here, I want you a part of my life, wow, it feels, there's something special, and
Mm.
so sensitive and vulnerable on both sides.
Yeah.
And
You're
so
like,
I
"I don't have
think,
to do anything? You just want me there?"
right. And I think maybe there's something that connects to this question of, what does it mean to feel cherished?
Mm.
Maybe want is sort of like the door that opens on your way to discovering an even more magnified version of that of being cherished.
Mm.
Um, but what a great journal prompt.
Yeah. Well, take it
Yeah,
and run with it. And I love how you related it to acting as well. What's my want versus my need? My
totally.
super objective. I think this also relates to the perfectionism aspect that I relate to. Everybody take a shot. Relate is the buzzword in this book. And you've talked about perfectionism so much that I didn't want to maybe ask you too much on that and the Jenga like pressure that you describe it as. But I wondered, I guess, A, if kindness sort of was an agent of change in your battle with perfectionism. And then B, not to throw another question into the mix, but you navigate having this inner publicist, you call it, in your head throughout a lot of your story versus hearing your inner gut. So much so that the first time you kind of like have agency toward the end of the book and hear your inner voice, you don't trust it. And so I'm also wondering, where's the inner publicist today? Like in situations like this, does it try to come up when you're speaking with interviewers? Like what's the deal with the inner publicist?
Right. I'll start there and we can go backwards. I'll
Yeah.
probably need another reminder, but
Oh
so
yeah,
for
wherever we go is fine.
great.
I combined them both because I'm so pumped and I'm like, I have too many questions for Alyson. Oh my gosh.
I know we'll have to also offline and continue the conversation.
Yes.
So I work with a couple different therapeutic frameworks. For those who recognize quote unquote parts work from internal family systems, you'll see it threaded into the book where I have given sort of personalities to these different aspects of who I am. And it helps when you're, for some people, it helps when you're processing an experience to be able to say, oh, this part of me felt this way. And that stems from these other experiences, while this other part of me maybe feels a different way, and that stems from other experiences. And so the inner publicist absolutely, represents this kind of deep self-monitoring, desire to perfectly follow through. It has some anxiety wrapped up in there, but it also is serving a very specific purpose, which is I'm going to be on a public forum speaking, and there will be millions of people who can access this forever. And once
Mm.
it's out permanently. And so there does need to be a level of cleverness and care and sharpness with what I say. And so I had this therapeutic framework of internal family systems to work with, and my therapist sometimes talks about how different parts in different moments may try to take the driver's seat,
Mm.
and in some moments maybe they're actually the best one to take the driver's seat, but ultimately I would like to have a deeper sense of self who's able to say, okay, inner publicist, now's your time to shine. You're going to be
Mhm.
here and you're on for the next hour during interviews. And then afterwards, you can head to the back seat because I don't need to analyze what I'm eating for lunch and pretend to be answering an interview question about the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which the inner publicist
Been there.
will do.
Yes. Or
Um,
driving alone in the car and like pretending you're on a late night show. And I mean, for
yes.
you, it's actually real. But
No, but it's
yeah.
that kind of, it's so interesting because there's so much to learn about our own minds and what we care about
Mm.
and maybe what some of our fears are and how my desire to control others' perception of me would lead to me trying to anticipate what are all the possible things that I could be asked, and how would I answer why I chose a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and would I make sure you
Mm.
knew that it was a certain kind of jelly that was sustainably sourced, and would I make sure you knew that the bread was gluten-free because I'm allergic, just in case you watched another interview and learned that I was gluten-free, and now it sounds like I'm lying. It's like inner
Yeah.
publicist will go on a trip.
Oh my
Um,
goodness. Yeah, even for these, I'm like, if I put a quote in there, they'll know I read the book. Or if I like, there's
right.
just as humans, we navigate so much that I love and I'm taking in almost your like subliminal definition of kindness, which, and you touched on this earlier, but kind of spreading things out and balancing things versus squashing things or getting rid of them. Because you can't get rid
Mm-hmm.
of the voices in your head, but you can befriend them or kind of like delegate to them or compartmentalize them. And I think that's so cool because it takes
Yes.
the self fight, if that makes sense, out of it. That's something I'm going to take away from this conversation for sure. But
Yeah. Well, and as I mentioned earlier, when I said speaking to the wholeness of a person, that's
mm,
absolutely what I meant, the integration of all these parts of ourselves. So we're not dismissing and we're not, trying to eliminate, but we're rather understanding them and finding how they fit into the wholeness of who we are.
mm,
And this doesn't always apply to everyone, or it might not resonate in the same way, but for some, if it feels useful, to think about driving alongside, heading to a destination and all the different parts of you that scramble to get in the driver's seat, and
mm,
learning what are each of their strengths, if they were maybe a survival tactic for a certain situation, maybe they actually are the best person to be driving for right now. But
mm.
then when is it best for them to hang out in the passenger, in the back seat, or maybe they need to crawl into the trunk every once in a while? So
Yes, but the back seats, my dad had the car with the back seats would come down and you could like lay in
yes.
the trunk and then also be sticking out. Sorry.
Yes,
Sometimes
I
you got to
love
do that.
that.
Yeah,
Yes.
not literally what you were talking about, but I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, we have 10 minutes left. Oh my
Okay,
goodness. I
okay.
didn't even get to any of my questions. I don't even, we don't need to spend time on this, but I think something that struck me too was you walking the walk of maybe, I don't know if this was a conscious choice, but not having that middle section with the glossy photos. A lot of memoirs have photos. And I felt like your book was so internal and a lot of the things you struggled with were the externals. And I mean, I was even on set yesterday and it was a lovely set, amazing people, great experience. But there were even still moments of, oh, you have the bags under your eyes. We're going to fill that in. Or, oh, let me fill in this little part of your hair. Or, oh, you got to hide this. And it's sort of like, oh, like you're a kind person, but it's so interesting how we talk to people based on appearances. So that struck me as well of like the not having the imagery. I don't even know if that was a thought.
Well, it was and it wasn't. So it's so funny because I thought, if anything, I'll put together a photo album of these moments so you can see, I've got tons of home videos and tons
Mm,
of evidence of what was happening behind the scenes. And so maybe I would share some of those moments. So less of the polished and actually more of the, raw and real. But the thought of presenting a glossy photo truly never crossed my mind. I didn't even know that would be an option. And when I tell you, writing a book, I mean, you would think it comes with a manual and okay,
mm,
step 1, step 2, step 3, this is what we need to do before publishing. A lot of it is flying by the seat of your pants and learning along the way. And suddenly you're submitting a manuscript for review. And now you got to talk
mm,
to a legal team to make sure you can fact check everything that you said. But now we
mm,
need marketing to start rolling out. And now.
mm.
And then the world has it. And you're like, oh my gosh, should I get all the typos? I don't even know. Ah.
Well,
So,
okay, Allison, I will say, not to, I'm sorry to cut you off, but, and which I love that you walk that walk too by saying and instead of but. Okay, I'm going to stop talking.
yes.
I think typos are going to become in vogue in this world of AI. I think
Oh.
typos are human. And as a perfectionist, I'm trying to embrace typos because I think they're going to stand out from the books written by ChatGPT.
Mm,
So I hope you have some
right.
typos. Yeah. I didn't spot any. It's beautifully written, but
Thank you. Yeah. And I know, ChatGPT will come with its own typos if it's training on our own man-made models, but or
That's
data
probably
sets.
true. Yeah.
But I love also that it speaks to, like, we could unpack this on another episode another time, but
Yes.
once upon a time in the realm of linguistics and across all these fields, we have codified what is and is not appropriate and grammatically correct and this, that, and the other. And even those rules were established by a very narrow set of people and in very particular environments and eras. So I think
Mm.
it maybe behooves us to, bring in some grace and some flexibility and to make
Yes.
sure, as long as we're truly trying to listen to what the person is offering us, sometimes maybe we gotta be able to sidestep that they forgot that comma, or they decided to use the Oxford comma as opposed to not use the Oxford comma.
Yes. Yes. I know. It's so silly and relates to Hollywood, which is also so silly. And I'm so silly. But I think it brings to mind the image of the beautiful, thin, blonde haired girl that you talk about at the beginning
Mm,
of the book, the sort of the standards we set. And it's like, why? Just keep asking why. And I want to really mention your work as a mental health coordinator on
mm,
set and on stage. How does kindness show up in that process?
mm.
A lot of the work you're doing is almost a pipe dream I have of, what if day one everybody signs up and kind of fills out a survey that says what kindness is to them and how they want to be treated and how eye contact really isn't good for them and it's good for this or whatever.
Mm.
So I love the specificity of what you're doing, and I would love to hear you talk about how kindness plays a role in it.
I think we should keep chatting and see what we could do together.
I love that.
In this industry and just broadly speaking. So I think,
Mm,
for all industries, I think kindness asks us to redesign our companies and our organizations where people don't have to burn out or beg for basic care and basic needs to be met. I
mm.
think now I'm not only a mental health coordinator for sets, but I'm also, as of a few days ago, a local board member for SAG-AFTRA. And
Yes.
so I'm thinking about kindness
Can I say I voted
as,
for you? What?
oh, yay! Thank you. I don't know if I'm allowed to say anything. So
I don't know if I should even say that. Oh, I'll cut that out. No,
sure.
congratulations. That's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah. So I'm thinking about kindness as fair wages. I'm thinking about kindness as accessibility in the kind of spaces in working conditions we create. I'm thinking about designing accountability processes where whistleblowers are not punished for coming forward.
Mm,
So I think kindness also factors into things like power dynamics, knowing that not everyone in the room, or on the call sheet has the same quote unquote structural position or rank, and that we need to be conscientious of that when we're navigating situations. And I think kindness can inspire a certain kind of care that can be
mhm,
woven into contracts, work schedules, and the overall set culture. And it excites me because, I don't think I'm not sure that these tiny individual acts cut it, if it's not coupled with kindness and policy. It's
mm,
like you had a great metaphor earlier, and I'm going to add my own here. Like, we can't water a single plant with that act of kindness while the rest of the field is withering and you're in a
mm,
drought. So
mhm,
you can't skip over addressing the conditions that created the drought in the first place.
mm,
And that's the kind of work that we're trying to translate as coordinators, and board members, for our industry. And so, of course, like, take that and run with it to whatever, communities and organizations you're a part of.
mm.
Because there's a great quote. I need to look this up because I've now quoted this some person a million times, but I learned it from my friend Kira. So I'll pass it to Kira. When we're unable to rise to our values, we'll fall on our structures. And so I
Ooh,
think there are lots of tough moments, or maybe we're just really tired that day and it's hard to make the choice that you ultimately want to make.
mhm.
And what we'll have to do is fall back on whatever systems are in place. So we better design those systems with kindness and care so that when we inevitably need to fall back
Yes.
sometimes, we're still proud of the choices we're making and how we're treating each other.
Mm.
And I'll really quickly add, that's another way that I think I feel cherished or cared for, is that if someone helps me in my moment of tiredness or quote unquote weakness, make a decision that ultimately matches what I do want to model in my life, I feel deeply cared for. If you help me rise to the version of myself that I deep down want to be, and maybe I'm just struggling to be in that moment, that's, I think, such a generous act of service.
I love that. And kindness is messy, right? We can't always be, I mean, that's something we struggle with, is the perfectionism of it. But to bring it back to your beautiful metaphor, if our roots are fully in the ground of kindness, I think we'll weather every storm. And again, I say kindness in the sense of being authentic to yourself. And sometimes you're kind to yourself at the cost of being kind to somebody else, and that's okay. You know, we reserve the right to change our minds, our actions, and our perspectives. So I love everything you shared. I just have a couple more things. I'm going to scratch out about 20 questions, Alyson. I
Aw.
prepared way too much for you, but
It's because I give such long-winded answers.
I love your answers, and I would just listen to TED Talks with you nonstop. And I think we'll figure something out about to button this kindness ambassador on every set or whatever that means. But I would love to quickly play a surprise game.
Okay.
It's called the compliment game. And basically, I reached out to someone in your life for a loving statement about you, and I'm going to read it to you, and then you just have to guess who said it.
What?
I know. And you can ask me yes or no questions. There's 3 guesses, and honestly, there's not really any rules, which might be kind of crazy, but
Ooh. Okay.
yeah. Okay.
Everyone is beautiful in their own way. It's the compliment game on the A-OK. It's the compliment game. Bump.
It's a sweet quote. Are you ready?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. I promise it'll be fun. Alyson has proven that they can do anything. Movement, mental health, advocacy, social media, and so much more. There is no one as committed to their growth. Alyson has tirelessly committed themselves to helping others with their authenticity and testimony in the entertainment industry. And there is apparently a hint built in there that I can highlight if you need it. Because I asked this person, I was like, do you have a hint? And they were like, this is the hint. I was like, oh.
Is it Monique Coleman?
No, but Monique said I might be getting another one from Monique that I'll send you later on. Because the timing, yeah, but they wanted to. Monique was the other person I reached out to, oddly.
I wondered if it was Monique because she was one of the folks who led some of the movement videos for Movement Genius.
Yes.
So is this person in the industry?
Yes.
And oh, geez, have I worked with them in a project before? Like in an obvious way?
No.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
You've been in a similar arena, I'll say.
Oh,
Not your journey with the Hunger Games, by the way.
that's funny. Do they work in a different part of the industry, like in social media management?
No.
Okay.
They are sort of directly in the same, I'll just say, acting, and are on the other side of a similar machine that you've been through.
Really? I mean,
and the hint is Alyson has proven that they can do anything. They said that was a hint.
Alyson has proven that they can do anything. They can do anything. Is that a line from something?
This is a hard one.
I was like, it's not Jeanette.
No.
No.
Okay, this person has walked a lot of similar paths to you, and that they went through the same machine.
Kira?
And then
No.
Now they have a podcast.
Hey, it's not Blair?
No.
Is it Blair? It's not Haley?
No.
Who?
This person isn't odd.
Even. Christy.
Yes, Christy Carlson Romano. Yay! Yes.
Amazing. Oh, that's sweet.
Very
That
sweet.
took me so long.
I felt bad because I was like, do you have a hint? And she was like, no, the anything part is a hint. And I was like, okay, I love you. I'm such a
Why
fan.
is that
Christy,
a hint, Christy?
I don't know.
I
but
have
you
to
two had
ask
a
her
great
that.
conversation on her podcast that everybody should also check out as well. And
Yeah.
one of the last little surprises here is that this is something new we're trying this season as we launch this new season. I always talk about my nanny on the show. And so my nanny, my grandma, is standing by to ask you a question if you don't mind.
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Of course.
She loves researching, and I think she had a good time researching your journey. And so I'm going to call Nanny. I've never done this before, but I'm excited.
Okay.
We're calling Nanny. Nanny?
I'm here.
Hi. Oh, okay. We're so excited. I'm just going to change the speaker so you can hear Alyson.
Okay.
Hi there.
Can you
How
hear
are
each
you?
other?
Hi, Alyson. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yay. We did it.
Nice to speak with you.
Oh, the pleasure is mine, Alyson. I'm so inspired by your book.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind. Thank you. I feel honored to speak with the one and only.
Oh, I feel the same way. You are so talented and gifted, and I'll let you talk. I'll be quiet.
Oh, no. We've had a great conversation, and they generously are giving us a little bit more time so you could ask a question, because I know you have one, Nanny.
Alyson, there's so much of quotes that I've loved, and your reflections and your wisdom. And because Robert's so interested, and as we are, in kindness and self-care, would you mind answering during the process of writing, because that's my field, literature writing, in that process, did you feel the writing the book was in itself, of itself, an act of loving self-care? And if not that, singular question, did you need other forms of self-kindness during the actual process of writing, which could be grueling or cathartic? So did I make that clear?
Yes, that is such a good and layered question. You know, writing the experience of writing did not feel very kind sometimes, but I knew that the deeper purpose was to be able to share this story with people so they could connect new dots that they hadn't seen before. And in order for me to do that, I was going to need some of these other actions of kindness and care in the process. So it's a bit of a messy answer because I don't think it necessarily felt super kind to my well-being per se to do this. But in order to get through it, I learned that I get to basically revisit all of my past with a fresh perspective. And wherever there were moments of hurt or pain, I tried to embrace the chance to either heal further or see it with new eyes. And I dealt with a lot of insomnia. I had a lot of sleepless nights trying to think about all of these early experiences. And I spoke with some loved ones and I said, you know, I would love to be able to have a perfect formula for how to get through this process. But I think the kindest thing I can do right now is to accept that some of this is just going to be hard. It's just going to be confusing. It's just going to be messy. And, you know, if I need to kind of relax some of my expectations of myself, then, you know, I may need to do that. And I did. And a specific area is that I tend to have a sweet tooth, and
Same.
yes, and in the past, I would try to be mindful of that sweet tooth, but I reached a certain point where I actually had to say, you know what? If it takes giving yourself a cookie to write the rest of this chapter, even this is not a long-term solution, but right now, just enjoy that cookie and get through this chapter.
Yeah. You give a
So I
mouse a
think,
cookie.
yeah, I think it was really the act of kindness was in embracing the imperfection and the so-called flaws, and letting myself be deeply human. And I appreciate you asking that, because I certainly didn't do anything perfectly, but gosh, when you're doing something that big for the first time, I don't think expecting perfection is very reasonable. So, thanks for giving me a
Yeah.
chance to reflect on that.
Thank you, Nanny.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'll call you right back. I love you.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, she's the
How
best.
sweet.
Thank you for doing that. She's so sweet. She taught me like everything I know on self-care and boundaries and just
Wow.
being a good human. So I thank
How
you for letting me
special.
include her in this. Yeah, very
Yeah.
special.
And my older generations of elders have all passed, so it's always really touching when I
Oh,
get to interact with people who have been here for a while, and they're like,
yeah.
okay, we've seen it all.
I know. And you know what the coolest thing about Nanny is? That she evolves.
Mm,
She doesn't get stuck in the tropes of her generation,
so cool.
and she empowers herself with knowledge and does her best to go forward, which I think
That's
we all,
amazing.
yeah, we should all keep that in mind as we get older too. So thank you,
Yeah.
Nanny.
Nanny is my inspiration.
Well, I'll give you Nanny's number. I do a lot of walk and talks with her, but
Oh,
I would love if we could just end this time together. Not end it because I've loved it, but if we could end this by you sharing a tangible kindness tip. So something you would
mm.
like everybody out there on their own corner to do to try and make the world a little brighter as a kind leader.
So I think we've touched on it throughout the conversation, our body language, and I want to offer the thought of what the posture of kindness might be for us to practice.
Mm,
I try to be mindful of my body language these days in conversations with people, because I tend to be quite guarded or skeptical or nervous. And
yeah.
sometimes I subconsciously cross my arms, cross my legs, and I'll even keep my torso faced slightly away from someone.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll hold on to tension in my body as we're talking because I feel like I'm in a rush.
Yeah.
And so in reality, if the moment itself is generally safe and it's non-threatening, I now try to remind myself to consciously soften my body, to uncross my arms and legs, to face my torso toward the person and offer eye contact if that's culturally appropriate and a baseline for how I offer presence. And I think letting someone truly feel seen, and for them to know, they don't have to earn your attention by making themselves extra interesting, that
Mm,
it's not a burden to listen to them. I think that can be really meaningful in a time where focused attention can feel scarce.
mm,
So my offering is to practice a posture of kindness. And if you're not sure what that is, maybe just start by exploring what is the
mm.
posture of kindness for you, and how does it
Wow.
shift based on who you're speaking with.
I love that. No one's ever said that. I think that is so cool. You can
Yay!
also, yes, you nailed it. You can check out Movement Genius to find out other ways to move your body and your posture and all these wonderful things. But thank you, Alyson. I thanked you at the top for being you. And I feel so grateful that I live in a world where we have role models like you, because we need more
Mm,
people who are using their incredible platform and their talents and their beautiful brain to help others and make a safer space for others. And what you're doing, not only for young performers, but even just for silly Muppets like me, is making a difference. And it's kind of moving the needle. So Just thank you. Thank you. So much gratitude for
Well,
you.
then I will receive that compliment, and I'm going to pass one to you as well, which is this has been a very standalone conversation in this book campaign and press tour, and your attunement, just the fact that I feel like we're actually listening and sharing in such a present way is a gift, and also just the premise of blending interpersonal moments of kindness with the scientific rigor that shows just how valuable it is. I mean, you're speaking my language, but also you're offering something that's so valuable. So thank you, and hopefully, we'll be able to talk shop about former kid performer things at some point.
Yes, I would love that. And I also am
Yeah.
now like, we need to get a human, this sounds so wrong, but a human themed cookie for World Kindness Week, like an Alyson cookie. I know this
Oh.
awesome cookie shop. We could talk about it, but I'm like, you need your own cookie,
Ooh.
your own kindness cookie.
Oh, that's sweet. Well, I'm only who I am because of all the other people. So we got to get everyone's faces on there.
That would be so cool. Yeah, even just like lots of different colored sprinkles, a metaphor. I don't know.
Mhm.
But thank you
Love
so
it.
much again. And I receive what you said. I mean, I jumped into talking about a random cookie idea, so maybe I didn't fully receive it. And I'm going to go unpack that, Alyson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Until next time, remember, everything is going to be A-OK.